Hey girls, how are y'all picking up with your friends with fear lately? Like how much are y'all hearing your friends talk about fear?
Well, I think we have categories that they're either all talking about it or completely don't care.
That's true. I definitely have people who don't care right now and they just totally check out of everything and they really don't care. But how about the people that you're filtering, like in your family? Or do you have any family members that are frustrated with what they're afraid of and what they're hearing on TV?
Well, one thing for me is we have this group text, like a family group text. And I'm talking like family, like my husband's, sisters and all that. And my husband's sister is a nurse practitioner. So she gets all the stuff, all the facts, all the updates and all that. So literally every day we get a text that says COVID, a gazillion people, deaths, a gazillion people. You know what I mean? And my daughter, Riley, who's 20, she's like, I just would just rather not get these texts. Like we know that this is happening and we know, but it's interesting to me because I can tell in that text who's fearful and who's not, because I'm like, whatever, and then like other people are really intense about it. Like my husband's dad has a young son. I say young, he's like 25, but compared to my husband, and he's very intent. He won't let him out of the house. He won't let him go do anything. It's like a real fearful place. And I just don't get it. Like I can't understand. But I want to, because I don't want to be mean or be like whatever, but it is interesting it's like extremes, Michelle. It's like you're either don't go anywhere, oh my gosh, mask all the time, or you're like, whatever, things are open, let's go. I kind of think it's just a very it's a kind of very divided. You're either right or you're this. That's what I've noticed, at least just in my family.
Yeah, it's crazy. Even with the doctor that was speaking in Dallas last weekend or a couple weekends ago, how very clear-minded and precise she is about what her treatment is with that hydroxychloroquine and what it's creating as far as space that doesn't perpetuate fear, but actually perpetuates hope. I mean, if you allow it you sit in that. But then you have other doctors that are showing a completely different side, which doesn't mean that they have empirical data to pull off of. It just shows that they're totally squashing the whole idea of hydroxychloroquine. And so you have these two, groups. We have this one group of people, but two different people in the group of doctors that we should be like listening to that are messing with these two ends of the spectrum of what would be fear and hope. And which one do you choose to submit to when the news is saying one thing and the Bible is saying something else, right?
Well, I think you just hit on it, is what are you choosing to submit to? So are we submitting to fear and retreating because, oh my gosh, fear is coming at us and we're being told these things? And, fear also, when you operate in that, there's also a part of control. So you are controlled through your fear. So are you going to submit to that control and submit to that fear? Or are you going to stand up and be, no, I'm bold, I'm strong, I'm courageous, I am walking with the authority that I have. And I feel like there's this thing when you're talking about the divide of being, you're either fearful or the people over here, Jesse, like you were saying, like, let's go out, let's go. And they're ridiculed for saying, well, what, you just want everybody to die? You want everybody to die? Are you not caring about anybody? But then there's also this group over here who maybe don't even understand that the fear piece is operating in and around them, because I don't want to look at them and go, you're wrong, and you're right. It's not this right or wrong thing. It's more of like, what are you submitting to? What are you allowing yourself to retreat or to stand up to?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think we can all agree on this, with all of us, that the danger is real.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
The danger is real, but fear is a choice. And I think people don't understand the dynamics of fear being a choice. They just see the danger and what they're hearing on a constant stream. And so it perpetuates all this fear. And they think that the only choice is to be fearful. and they submit the knowledge to someone else to tell them what it is to do instead of figuring it out for themselves and learning and going to research and all these things. So anybody else have any thoughts about that?
Well, I was going to say too is that sometimes we think we're expected to be fearful or expected to worry. And
Mhm.
so that gets us into that too. Is like, I'm not being a good mom if I don't worry. Like, I'm not being a good
Oh,
mom if I'm not
so
doing
good.
this, that, and it's more of like a peer pressure thing too. Is
Yeah.
like, I need to be worried, and really, the Bible tells us not to over and over and over again, but our peers tell us to worry. If you're not worrying, and if when I call you and you're not worried about this, then it's a reflection that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and it's exactly the opposite of where we're supposed to be.
Well, and I think it's this how do we take in information that is unsettling at times, but also work through that information to be able to come to a rational, logical conclusion of how do we take steps in our own world, steps for, you know, our protection, but also steps for freedom. And so there's just this tension between the two right now, and it's how do I move not in fear, but also prudently in my choices of interacting with the world around me. And I think this comes up a lot. And I've also noticed, just on a side note, that even like talking to lots of parents with children in the household, things are going up, like kids are struggling more with being afraid of things that they've never been afraid of before. Like, I don't want to go outside and play. What do you mean you don't want to go outside and play? You know, like well, why do they have the playground? All they know is like, you can't go to the park. So then therefore in a 4-year-old's brain, it's, I'm not supposed to go outside and play. So it's even small things like that I see it infiltrating every age across the spectrum. So it's fascinating. How do we take in this information and really be able to spend time with it without immediately going into a fear place that paralyzes us from being able to make wise choices?
Absolutely.
Well, have
Absolutely.
you noticed like the conditioning when you start to look back at how we've been conditioned to think of plagues, to think of whatever, what are we calling that, pandemic or pandemic? When you look at the movies and everything, they've conditioned us to be afraid, stay inside. What was the last one? Was it the birdcage where, you know, you couldn't see
Right.
everything? And so we're pretty much already brought that all into our brains. And when somebody mentions the word pandemic or they mention plague, we're going to automatically go to those horrible movies that we've seen and how they're looking for the cure and the vaccine. And we have to trust that one person that is doing it, you know. And so if you're the person that's a follower, then you're waiting for that one person to come and save the day, right? But it's kind of like, which part do you play when you watch those shows? Are you the follower in there, or are you the one that's, you know, trying to find the cure?
Trying to find the cure.
And I think the hard part too is knowing who to trust. We, as like a business owner, we opened our business yesterday for the first time. And, you know, like, and it's kind of like the thing, Michelle, you're talking about is I felt like I needed to be not worried, but at least look like I'm being really responsible, you know, like, so I said, you know, all the teachers, we have a performing arts group classes, and I told all the teachers they needed to wear masks. I got this thermometer thing to take the temperatures as they walk in. We put X's on the floor that they have to stand or 6 feet apart. I'm just, and to be honest though, I mean, I want to be safe, but the whole reason I'm doing that is for the other people, you know? So I want to feel like I'm doing the right thing as a business owner, but then in reality, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to wear this mask, you know? But what I'm finding, even just yesterday, the first time we opened, is the parents and the kids coming in, it's just it's interesting to me to see where they are right now. And almost all of them, at least where we live in Texas, you know, Dallas, Fort Worth, they're like, they're over it. And they aren't worried. And I think that's interesting. And I don't know, have they taken like a survey or a poll? That'd be interesting to, like, in different states. Are you worried, or are you like, whatever, let's keep going? You know, I'd be interested to see, like, and it probably comes from our leaders, or it does come from who we listen to, you know, like if you're in New York and you're listening to that leader, you're going to be fearful, but we're in Texas and they're opening things up. So we don't have to be fearful. I don't know. It has been interesting to see the different parents come in and just being like, I'll wear them. And they're saying, I'm wearing a mask because y'all are wearing a mask, but nobody really here wants to wear a mask. So it's been interesting to see that.
So I think you raise a good question about where do we find our peace? Like, is it from our leaders? Is it from, the news? Is it from our own internal being? Is it from God himself? Like, is it a combination of all of those things? Like, where do we actually find our peace? And then what are the things we do physiologically and psychologically to help ourselves stay grounded and peaceful even amongst the storm and the chaos at times? And so I totally agree with you. I'm hearing similar things on the front of the PPE stuff, like especially masks. And we kind of have an ongoing joke in my family, like as soon as it hits 95, masks aren't going to be a thing in Texas, because like you feel like you're suffocating when you walk outside anyways in the summertime, let alone with the mask on your face. So it'll be fascinating to see how those things shift over time too. But yeah, I definitely think like the question about where do we find our peace, and then how do we usher in peace, spiritually, physically, and emotionally.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I find too that it's almost like it's become this camaraderie between people who, we're talking about masks, I'll just use that as an example, people who wear masks versus people who don't. And there doesn't have to be that, like what you're talking about, walking in your peace. Are you seeking the Father? Are you seeking his wisdom? Are you researching for yourself? If you have researched and you have come to the conclusion with your knowledge and where you are that you need to be wearing a mask, by all means, this is a free country, a free nation, you wear a mask. On the other hand, if you have done your research and you're on the other end of the spectrum and what you have peace is, I don't need to, don't wear a mask. And I know there's so much fighting about that. And I think for me, it's until we stop fighting each other and we come together in unity, there are things that we can find that we are all on the same page about. But instead, I feel as though the media and social media itself, and people say things on social media they would never say to your face. Ever would they say that to your face. And to just be very careful, are we looking at the things that we have in common, or are we totally just coming in to tear one another apart and bash one another and to create that chaos, division? And that's not who we are. That's not the people we are. That is just not who we are. And so I think you have to come to a place of where you're like, I will not engage in that. I will not engage in that chaos and fight, because I'm with my peace, you do you. And I'm going to respect you, and all I ask is for you to respect me, and let's come together on the things that we have in common.
Yeah, I think it's so crazy, because I think people fear what they don't know. They don't understand, they don't know. So they submit what they don't understand, what they don't know, at the foot of whomever they deem knows and has the answer, right? And so what that tells me is that level of fear puts them in a state of trying to figure out how they control the fear, and then they give the control over to someone else for making that decision. And when we've all looked at this passage and the past couple months, and Daniel we've talked about it amongst us, people listening to us, they've heard this passage and they've studied it and they see it in Daniel, when you've got that whole dynamic of getting rid of the Prince of Persia, and then all of a sudden you have the Prince of Greece coming in. Well, that Prince of Greece is knowledge. It is all the understanding, all the knowledge. So while we got rid of the Prince of Persia, we were then faced with the Prince of Greece. And so I feel like that's exactly the season that we're in, and that every single one of us in this group, we all set the tones for our family. And so because we all press in, and I don't submit my understanding to what someone else says, I do my due diligence and I figure it out. And so sometimes I feel like I deserve kind of a degree at the end of hours and hours of study, right? Because that's how I feel about it. But like, I'm going to throw it over to you, Ruth Ann. Like, tell me what it feels like in your household, because you do set the tone in your household. Like, what is that? Give me the perspective of what that all feels like in your home.
Well, in facing this fear, my husband's been really the one like pressing in and looking for all the statistics out there, and I live in the city of Fort Worth. There's like 2.2 million people. And at the peak of this a week ago, there was only 5 cases that had died that did not have any comorbidity issues. And so when he brought that information to the table, because I don't do numbers, and so that's not my thing.
Right.
And when he brought that, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, it really shed new light on how much fear is surrounding this whole topic, because really we shut down our city for 5 people, right? Like, I mean, in the big sense, like, yes, there's more cases than that out there, but only 5 that died that didn't have underlying health issues.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are probably sitting in fear because they aren't taking care of themselves. They're not taking care of their bodies. And so they're thinking, well, I've got this problem, and this problem. And so for us, just setting that tone of, we're going to step out there, we're going to interact with our friends again. We're going to, as soon as the state allowed it, we're meeting with people and having people over to our house and doing those things that are outdoors and that are healthy, and taking our supplements, because we're going to go out there. Our bodies are designed. God created us in our bodies with a great, amazing immune system to be able to fight off diseases and viruses. And so if you're building yourself up, and so for me, just setting the tone as far as what we're eating, because I'm the one going and buying the groceries. So what are you putting on the table before your kids that's going to bring that to the table? And then just educating my kids, because I've got teenagers who can understand all these things, and then my little ones, they just kind of follow suit. So when they hear somebody's kind of doing the opposite of what we are, they look at them like, are you crazy? But it was interesting. My daughter and I went to the store just this past weekend, and it was a huge kind of warehouse type store with lots of little individual vendor shops in there. And we had masks in the car because I didn't know if they were going to make us wear one or not going in. They did not. And I would say 90% of the people that we passed in there did not have a mask on. And so I was like, okay, these are my people, but the interesting thing is, and my daughter and I are talking about this, they wouldn't make eye contact with you. And then they would veer around you, like, I'm going to give you your space, it's like, so even though like you can have peace for yourself, I felt like I could still feel the fear in others. And like, there's just different levels of people coming to peace with what's happening in the situation. And like, where is your line with fear, and what are you coming into agreement with? Like, oh, I'm okay for myself, but I don't know you, so I'm not going to trust you. It's like, when are we going to get that trust back with humanity, with complete strangers? And it was kind of shocking for me how much like I was suddenly aware of that, and then how much I missed that, like just common courtesy, and not like feeling like it just brought me to the place of like, I felt like, oh, this is what the lepers felt like, in biblical times, because just the avoidance of people. And so it's interesting.
Sometimes I wonder, because I was at the grocery store and I felt that too the other day. And, I'm the person now, I'm like, I just say hi to everybody and just kind of, and I'm kind of touchy, and so it's really been hard for me. Like when I see people I haven't seen, like yesterday with the kids walking in, I want to grab them and hug them and pick them up, and I can't. But it's not so much that I'm scared. Like, I'm wondering if we're all worried about what the other people's thinking, rather than they're thinking, I don't know you, so I'm going to go around you. Are they thinking, oh, she might not want me to get close to her, so I'm going to go around you? It's almost like we're all worried that other people are worried or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it makes me wonder who is actually really worried.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I went into a restaurant the other day, and this gentleman was standing like right where I needed to get to. And so I was like, I'm trying to respect his space. And I'm like, I need to really get in that fridge for just a moment. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, pardon me. And I'm like, I just don't want to be in, like, I don't want to bother your space.
Mhm.
And he was like, no, I don't care. And I was like, and my response out of me, like not even thinking, was like, oh, I don't care. I want your germs. Like I do. I
Right.
want your germs, because
Right.
how else am I going to build my immune system unless I
Right.
get your germs? Like, let me just lick the counter, you know? You know?
No licking the counter, Michelle.
Let me just lick it and let's just get this over with.
Well, that girl.
So really, like, what's the possibility, okay, of me winning the lottery and me getting COVID? I just pulled that number up that I'd sent this morning, and it was like, what, 1,100 people, 11,000. It was like, what? That's just ridiculously small. I'm going to come up with lots more things before I get COVID. And what if I get it? What's going to happen? What is the worst thing that could happen to me? I could die. I mean, let's just be real. And I think that's part of it, is people don't want to think about what's the worst thing that can happen, and go there, think about it. And if you have fear of what's going to happen if you die to yourself, then guess what? You better get that reconciled right now. If you have fear about what's going to happen to your kids if you're gone, you better get that reconciled, because how you're training your children is how it's going to be if you go. It doesn't mean COVID's going to take you. We have people that die in car accidents all the times. Mom of 4 that died in a car accident, gets cancer. Maybe this is a wake-up call for some people, and you need to be waking up and getting yourself into that place so you can start making some changes and decisions. And if you're just going to sit in fear, you're not doing anything. You're just sitting in it, right? I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen when you look at the statistics, or when you look at the percentage of people of getting sick. How about I put it like this? The chances of you getting sick, you have 9.3% chance of getting coronavirus in the state of California. That's just the state of California, where everything's shut down until the end of July. I'll just make that simple. 99.9% chance of getting coronavirus in the state of California alone. So
No,
when you
wait,
think
you're,
about,
no, wait a second. You're saying
because it's 0.06, and then a long number after that of the people that have gotten the coronavirus in the state of California.
so you're not going to get it, or you're going to get it?
Okay, yeah, let's see. It's 99.9% chance that you're gonna get it. Did I say it right?
No,
So you're going to get it.
You're
no,
not.
that you're not gonna get
I
it.
get it. 99 point.
This is why we need Ashley on the call, because he's the one making up this guy.
He's got the
People are
stats.
like, Dina, what?
It's like less than 1% that you will get it.
Okay, less than
That's
1%.
what she said.
And that number I quoted earlier, I went back because 1,100 didn't sound like enough, and I said 11,000, and it's 1,100. It is 1,100.
Crazy.
And honestly, right now, we don't know if that's even true, because you can kind of, well,
What
we've
did you
been
say?
told that that's
1,100 that have it? What did you say?
1,100 in the state of Texas of
Have died.
29 million people. Only 1,100 people have actually gotten it.
have
in the state
gotten
of Texas.
died. That's the ones that have died, 1,100.
No, oh yeah, that's the ones that have died.
Right. And so if they're dying of it, then we also know, because my mom said this yesterday, and I was like, this has been out since the beginning, because I've listened to every briefing since the beginning. But at the very beginning, they said, no, we're counting everything as COVID. So if you have cancer and you have COVID, it's COVID. If you have a heart attack and you have COVID, it's COVID. And this is COVID that's sick, or COVID that's just you have the antibodies. So it could be, and it could even be a false positive, false negative.
Well, it's just like the stuff that came out of Colorado yesterday, where they went back and 23% of their COVID death cases were retracted because of what you were just saying. And so someone had filed a lawsuit like, no, we want to know, the actual number. So this is part of the problem, is when we're talking about, people want to look at data, and is the data that we have, is it truth? Is it factual, and so we're coming out now to where we're learning, different things. And so I just think that's part of the process of, like, where people have to really educate themselves. But then you also have to remember, are you looking to educate yourself only with people that validate what you already believe? Or are you willing to step outside of what you already know, look at something completely new, and then go, okay, I need to seek the truth here. But a lot of people, and I mean, I'm guilty of it too, where we'll get in that place of like, I'm only going to look at and research people who think like me so they can validate me. So I'm still just staying in that same place. I'm never really moving forward because I'm only looking for validation. Although we can validate numbers and we can find validation in truth. It's just, what is our reasoning or our intent of, staying with one thought process or looking at one group of, numbers or medicines or anything like that. So, I'm just under the thought of we need to be seeking the Lord in this and going to divine revelation, because there's so many problems right now that they're not going to be solved by the same people who caused the problem. So how do we get those problems solved? We go to the Lord. We seek divine revelation. The problem was solved here. We're not going to solve it right here. We've got to go up here to solve that problem. And so that's just kind of where my belief system is right now, is we've got to be seeking the Lord in this.
Yeah, one of the things I think are real important is sources, and the dynamics that of this group and the people that we run with. We have access to a lot of really important and I think valuable, valid information that's provable, that's kind of going against mainstream media. So I feel like one of the things that would be just as helpful to listeners looking for answers, like, okay, great, so I'm not supposed to listen to ABC or CNN, like, well then, and I'm not supposed to listen to Fox because every once in a while they get it right, but where do I go? I mean, like, okay, I can't Google, so now I feel like I'm stuck in a box and I don't know. Okay, I'm supposed to research on my own, but how do I research on my own when I don't even know how to do that, because no one's taught me how to do that. So what are some of the suggestions from us about that for other people listening in?
Well,
Go ahead.
okay, I'll start. Since I'm in the car a whole lot. So because I'm in the car a lot, I listen to a lot of talk radio. So what would I naturally listen to? And so it's here in Dallas, it's WBAP 820. Well, there's not all of the speakers I'll listen to, because some of them I'm like, I just don't like them. But there are a couple that I like. And so, of course, they are more Republican. So if you are not Republican, you're going to be like, but maybe you should. They're always open to conversation too. So like, they actually do have a big Democrat audience, because they want to hear what we're talking about. So I'd listen on there. I feel like the information that our group has is like ahead of them, and they're just waking up to what we know and see. So it's been very interesting to see that. But you're looking at even when I flip over to, there's another station, it's AM, it's 1080, and they have Dave Ramsey on there, which is just a different whole echelon of talking. Like, he's just going to talk about finance and money. But it's interesting to hear that he's woke in this area too, to knowing, there's some stuff going on a level way bigger than COVID. And so it's just been interesting for me to listen in that area. I know y'all do some different type stuff, but y'all can share that.
That's good. I just think a big part of it is, I think you just try stuff and you listen to stuff, you watch stuff, and kind of see, you got to find that peace, that feeling of peace, that like, it feels peaceful to me. It feels true, because, if you're a believer, you have the Holy Spirit inside of you. And so I mean, I'll be listening to something and I'll be like, I'm not supposed to listen to that, and then I'll listen to them and I'll be like so into, I'm like, find another podcast of that same person, and I get to where I really want to listen to them. So I think a big part of it is just that peaceful, the inner peace. If you're listening to it and you try it and you're like, I feel like this is truth. And then I think another thing for me is finding people you trust and asking them what they listen to. Like I don't call myself a real political in that world type of person, but I know if I need to know what's happening, if I hear something, I'm like, and I need to hear something, I know I go to y'all. This is an awesome group, because I know that y'all are going to be on the front end and the front edge of it. And so I think it's about kind of finding your people, and so here's this topic. What do you think about it? And then just kind of going from there. But I do think it's kind of like you said, Dina, you got to just kind of try things, listen to things, research things and see where you land, where your truth lands, where your peace lands, and then kind of pursue that from that place, you know. And it's finding your tribe, I think part of it is.
So I think you make a good point. Discerning together is powerful, and that's a lot what we do in this group. Is we all discern on our own, and then we bring our discernment to each other, and then we all kind of bounce it off and get confirmation that way. When you're pulling information from lots of sources, that's like a really great way to do that. But I did want to say something when you're talking about finding your peace place, listening to other things. When you first start listening to new sources, you're not going to feel that peaceful about any of them.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the things that challenge your worldview is probably going to be the thing you don't want to listen to the most, that maybe might be the most beneficial to open your eyes to the bigger picture of things that are going on. Because no matter where you're looking for information, they only tell a part of the story. They don't tell the whole thing. No matter which side you're on or where you land, you're only getting this much. But if you look across at different sources, you might be able to piece together the larger picture. So I just want to encourage those who feel, I don't know, I think there was this push kind of and like the church world at times to step outside, to like not watch the news, turn it off. It doesn't make me feel good. I don't want to hear it. And now we're all telling everybody, you need to turn it on, and you're not going to like what you hear. You're not going to like what you see, and you're going to have to lean in and find your peace and rise above that a little bit. And so I just want to encourage those who start that process. If you're feeling like none of this makes me feel peaceful at first, your peace is in the Father. Like, you go to him for your peace while you're going through that process, and then totally finding a group. I agree with that. Totally.
You know what? I said the wrong thing, because it's not really peace. It's like, I don't know. I have to know the difference, but it's that feeling of truth. It's not so much peace. It's like, this settles in my truth bones. So I have to listen, like, because when I started listening to certain things, I was like, ugh. But then I felt the Lord say, you need to keep listening. You need to, even though it hurt and it felt gross, I just knew. It's like that, just knowing. Yeah, so that's a definite difference. It's good.
I think you have to ask yourself too, are you willing to know the truth, the best of it and the worst of it? Because there comes a place of where some people say, I don't want to hear it. I just don't want to know. I don't want to know. So you have to search it within yourself. Do you truly want to know the truth, the worst of the truth and the best of it?
Mm-hmm.
I find a lot of people kind of dealing with that cognitive dissonance right now. Like, this disrupts everything I've ever known.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? That phrase, cognitive dissonance, might be like a new phrase for some people really out there, because they may not know what that means. So I'm really glad that you said that. And I'm going to tell you the definition now, because I thought probably need to know that's what's happening, because y'all are describing the difference between feeling the truth and feeling a lack of peace, because something that has been indoctrinated into you in your education or from a religious aspect or from your upbringing is going to be set in stone. And then when you start hearing something that comes against that, it's going to create this dissonance between what is laid out in front of you that really might be the truth against what you have held as your truth for so long. And the fight between these two are very, very real. And so sometimes as you're learning, it can cause frustration, it can cause stress, it can cause anxiety, it can cause everything to be chaotic inside of you. Or even when you get it and then you try to share it with your spouse, and the look on their face is very much the same dynamic, right? And they're all going, yeah, you're weird. Or a friend might get angry at you and you're like, whoa, okay. But to recognize that in yourself is also to give space in when someone else goes to that same dynamic. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Anybody want to
actually just walked that out with a family member just yesterday. So she's been doing all the things and really staying home, hadn't left her county since all this started in March. And it's all worked well for her. And that's great. And absolutely no judgment on my side if that's like what she was comfortable with. But she got out to go see her doctor for just a physical that had been on the books for a long time. She just didn't want to reschedule it. And her doctor shared some things, which I was like, tell me more, because I'm curious to know what doctors are saying these days. And her doctor was just sharing with her a little bit about her experience treating COVID patients and how she's seen like that one family member will get diagnosed with it and no one else gets it. And she goes, and that's not what I'm hearing out there, but that's what my doctor's telling me has been her experience. And she just shared a few other things. But in this conversation with her doctor, we were sitting at lunch talking. Now she hasn't been out all this time, and now we're in a restaurant. So she's been to the doctor. Doctor's rocked her world a little bit. Then she's sitting in a restaurant. So she's kind of like, what planet am I on right now? And I could just tell lots of questions, wanting to talk about it, just like, where's your information? You know, like, but at the same point in time, I really saw cognitive dissonance rising up in her. I saw the anxiety level. I saw the flittering back and forth between, I want this information, no, I don't. What does it mean? What does that mean? Then if all of this is not true and that is true, or if part of this is true and part of this is true, then what does that mean for my world? And so it was fascinating. And I think that's where grace comes in for all of us, like just really extending grace to people as they go through this process. None of us know all the answers, and or even half of them. Like, we're all walking it out together and just having grace. And then what are the things I can do to ground myself here in the present moment with the Lord, to bring peace to myself in this moment? So I know we talked a lot about how we get to where we get and where we get information, and then how it could cause us some anxiety and a sense of, I'm not really sure what's up or down in my world right now. So then what are some of the things that you ladies do as you're processing information that help you stay centered in peace, like, and being able to process at the same time? Because I just think if maybe we could give a couple of things for people who are going through the process to just hold on to, even if they just try on whether they work for that person or not. We're all so unique and individual here, but I just thought that might be a great conversation to have as we're coming towards the end of our time.
I think it's, oh, go ahead, Ruth Ann.
Okay. I was just going to say, for me, because I'm not as political as some of the others on this thread, is when I get all caught up in that, I have to just step away from it and refocus on the Lord. And when you're coming up against fear, I think those things that drive out fear are praise music. And so fill your house with songs, and good songs that worship the Lord. And because the enemy is driven away through praise and worship. And so just spending time getting back in the Word and recentering yourself on Him, so that your discernment is coming from Him and not from all these other sources. And but for me, just filling my house with praise music, whether we're watching something or videos, or it's coming through a speaker, just so that it's in the background constantly, and what it's infiltrating my mind. It's like, what am I consciously filling my mind with all the time, and making sure that that is more heavily balanced with the Lord. And so, like, you go watch a video of some crazy new theory that's out there, or you spend some time on something that's just totally rocked your world internally and caused that cognitive dissonance. Well, okay, like, are you spending an hour or more with the Lord to fill your mind with that and get that balance back? So go ahead, Michelle, sorry.
Oh, no, that's good. Because mine's a little weird. But and my awakening, my journey started a little long before COVID, where most people have kind of jumped in around COVID. But years ago, and the Lord's been so gracious in helping me to like see step after step. Because if I was in some of the place of you guys just now having all this brought to me at once, that I can understand that's going to rock your world. And mine was little bits at a time. But one of the things is the Lord talks to me a lot when I'm in the bathtub. So I'm a water baby. And so if I'm in the bathtub, then He's usually talking to me, or He's revealing something to me. And so that's really helped me a lot, is to like pour Epsom salt, pour Himalayan salt, whatever it is, in the tub, spend the time there. And I realized too, is last night I came in and it had a busy day with lots of people, and I didn't have this need to be in the bathtub. So it also shows my progression of just my healing progression. Because in the beginning, like literally, I might take a bath 2 or 3 times a day, because there was so much that I was just taking in and taking on that was just making me chaotic. And now I'm like going, when's the last time I like took a bath, and it's not for very long because I'm wanting to get out, like, and which is good. But in those beginning times, I was like, I needed that time to kind of like wash away all the gunk that I was carrying so that I could finally relax and get to a place where I could talk to the Lord, because I was carrying too much other stuff. So, take a bath.
I think one of my favorite things, besides baths, because I do like baths. I'm glad you still take them though, Michelle, because that would not be good for your family if you didn't. But I think one of my favorite things, because there's a lot of things that we all know on here that we're not saying right now, I'm just saying it. But for the simplicity of it all, one of my favorite things is really taking a moment when my brain is chaotic and I know I'm not thinking clearly to breathe. And I really have adopted that, like, there's a quick access to a clear mind if I can do 5 sets of breathing to the count of 5, where I'm breathing in for 5 counts, and then every time I exhale, I'm going to breathe out longer than I breathed in. So I'm going to breathe out to 6 counts. I'm going to breathe out to 7 counts, and so on until I get at least 5 breaths in and 5 breaths out. And that slows down and brings the brain back into a state of balance so that it can actually concentrate and not be in a fight or flight. And so I feel like that's really valuable breathing. I mean, imagine that. But I think that most of the time we only breathe to hear when you're in a state of chaos and fear. And the goal when you're breathing in this dynamic, the way I'm talking about, is to breathe really all the way down into your deeper core. And that brings life and breath into your body so that you can concentrate and actually have clarity of mind. So
I think that's a great place to end on today. Of just, if you haven't, if that's all you've caught this whole time, of everything that you're walking through and everything that is coming at you, all the information. I mean, we are literally in an information warfare, but in the middle of the war, if you can just stop, be grounded in the Lord, breathe, find your peace, turn on that worship music, and just sit and go take a bath. Make sure you take a bath.